Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us to our AI Elephant in Every Room webinar series. So today's topic, working together, we dive a little deeper into data and its relation to AI in preparation. So my name is Chris Terrio. I'm a senior director at Online Business Systems with the customer engagement practice. I have worked in the contact center technology industry for over 20 years now with varying platforms. And I've enjoyed working in a consultancy role here at Online and helping out in that world. And today I'm joined with my good friend, Mark Struck. Mark, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. So Mark Struck, I'm a principal consultant. I focus on data and AI. I'm actually an actuary by trade. I have a background in all things actuarial, pricing, reserving, reinsurance, but I've also led teams that develop enterprise risk management systems, capital management systems, and then also teams that have led data management efforts, advanced analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I have experience creating and embedding AI systems into front-end applications, and that's what I do by day. By night, I'm a chief analytics officer at a startup in Winnipeg here that focuses on collecting and using evaluation data that is collected during sports tryouts to foster athletic development and the love of the sport. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome, thanks, Mark. If we advance the slide, please, Mark, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. So a little bit of background about Online for our guests who may not be familiar. Online is a Winnipeg-based company. We're a IT consultancy with a specialty in digital transformation and cybersecurity. Under that umbrella of digital transformation, there are many facets that we specialize in. Customer engagement, which focuses on the contact center, some digital advisory services. Digital Studio is start-to-end project developmental coordination. Service management practice, focusing with great partners like Microsoft, BMC, Five Nines, and things of the like. You can see from our slide here, there's some overarching topics that we can also tackle. AI and data services is one of those things. We currently see that kind of spans all of our practices, and it's kind of a very focal point of today's IT conversation. And hopefully we dive a little deeper today and focus a little bit on what everyone's talking about out there in the market. So, Mark, I'll hand it back over to you. Maybe introduce kind of a little more focus on today's topic.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So today we figured we would take a bit of a double-edged sword approach to this. Some of you are probably wanting to learn more about how to take advantage of AI. We felt that it would be best if we also provided a foundational understanding of the technology. We're not going to go into excruciating detail, but we will attempt to equip you with things that you would need to think about. But we also recognize that many of you might be more interested in hearing about more than just the theory, so we'll speak to things from a practical angle as well, ergo the theory and practice. That said, while our hope is that you will have some takeaways from this, we also know that each of your situations is unique, and that getting you from where you are and back onto the right track is often an individual thing for each organization. So we would encourage you to reach out, even if it's just for an introductory call, where we can discuss your scenario and your problems and challenges and find ways to address your unique circumstances. So that's sort of our backdrop here. Now, this slide here, I'm not going to go through each of the developments that you see on the screen there. It's intended just to be a bit of a backdrop. My comments here would be about why we're seeing this massive advance in AI this point in time. And there's a bit of a history lesson there that follows the paradigm of people, process, technology, and data. And so I'll start with the process side of things. These would be the algorithms that are available, and these algorithms have been around for a long time. But these are the things that analysts or data scientists, anybody building AI, use to sort of construct the technology. So that's the process side of things. The technology part, I would say, is the cloud offering. Having the ability to process data, large volumes of data at speeds that have never been seen, is a byproduct of cloud. And then what else we got? Data. Well, that's been around since the 90s in terms of big data and the collection and massive collection of data. Certainly much more of it since the advent of mobile devices as well. But the last critical piece in all of this is a more recent advance. And that's the people side of things. From an artificial intelligence standpoint, there used to be, and still kind of are, subfields within artificial intelligence. And it was kind of in around 2015, 2016, where all of a sudden, all of these subdisciplines started to work together. And largely based on some of the process stuff that was now available, and people gravitating towards neural networks and deep learning models and whatnot. So, just like any successful system, all of those components need to be able to come together to create something valuable. In this case, it's AI. And so all of those things have kind of lined up and created the opportunity right now that we're seeing. Okay, so just in terms of defining AI, though, I honestly feel like AI has sort of lost all definition. It gets thrown into a lot of conversations, and the context of it is quite varied. So I wanted to think about it in terms of how we interact with it. So first, as something that you create. I'm referring here to AI that you build from scratch. So you take data, you create some model that it can have some inputs, and you generate outputs that you can then embed into a decision-making process. These can be readily built with the array of open source tools that are available, and I would differentiate this category separately from the others, as your architecture essentially relies on your model and the data it requires. That's it. These are great options when the problem you're trying to solve or the processes you're trying to inform requires a very specific set of domain knowledge that is required, in addition to the math and coding skills of a data scientist to construct. So that's the first, something that you create. In terms of it being something that you consume, I think you can think about this as ChatGPT. Now, I'm a little hesitant to mention any specific large language model like I just did, because I strongly believe that we will see new entrants and likely a series of incremental improvements to these models, making the current incumbent potentially an afterthought. But for now, this is what most people think of when we're considering direct interaction with an AI. This is a growing category, and if people that build these LLMs had any clue as to what a good user experience should look like, I think they could probably capture a sizable chunk of the market. For many, this category is the sum total of their experiences with AI. They have questions, they find the experience informative or entertaining, or maybe both. And OpenAI's record-breaking user base suggests that many people are falling in this category. And then the last one is something that you integrate. This could likely be considered as a hybrid of the other two categories, but it comes with its own unique challenges. As with any new technology, it's important to see through the hype and the headlines and realize that you have your own business to run and problems to solve. This can be tricky. Everyone's talking about AI. Should I be worrying about it? How would I use the AI? What and how are others taking advantage of AI? The key is to have a process to help you identify the best use cases possible. We believe this so strongly that we have developed a workshop to get you there. Now, we will gladly come to your offices, virtually or in person, and walk you through the workshop, but here's the basic idea. Start the conversation by identifying the metric you want to improve. Then identify the key enterprise processes that directly impact that metric. Next, and lastly, find all of the decision points that are made in that process. But you're not just looking for any decision point. You want those that you collect data on, lots of data on. That's it. Take the data, analyze it in the context of those decisions, and embed it directly into your process, not outside of it. If you don't embed your analytics directly in your systems, it will be viewed as additional work, requiring additional time and effort, and you will fail. The strongest forms of impactful analysis and uses of AI will use data in stride. providing real-time recommendations and predictions that operate as a guide or assistant to a human decision maker. So those are the three sort of ways that I think about AI to sort of define it. It's a little bit more hands-on in terms of a definition. You'll find lots of definitions out there, and there are lots of different forms of AI, but I think in terms of how we interact with it is a meaningful construct. So with that kind of being the theory, Chris, I'll pass it over to you.
Well, yeah, no, thanks, Mark. I mean, from those three kind of segments or breakout topics, I think you nailed on the head and referred to it in the start. I mean, creating is heavy front end, so high in effort, maybe high in cost and end. It just seems to, you know, the skill set required and needed to pull this off or make it happen is something not to take lightly. So it's very much an effort that could be required from there, but it can be highly specialized and highly customized to meet exactly the need that you may be looking for, with greater control over refinement. So there's some power in there for what the cost may translate to. The consume aspect of it, again, rightfully talking about LLMs, it is coming from my world in contact center. It is the hottest button topic as of right now. It's somewhat revolutionary in the way you're able to inject automation when you're interacting with your customers. In a way, obviously, people who have played around with large language models, you know, you threw out ChatGPT, but again, not to brand anything, but the ease of back and forth interaction, the conversational nature, the interpretation abilities, the ability to inject persona so that you're conversing at an equal level or a desired level is all interesting pieces that are all getting, lack of a better term, kicked around in the contact center industry these days as to how we can get there and how we can leverage those things. So a lot of power is in those type of functions of consuming a model that is out there for essentially consumption by everyone. Integration is an interesting one. It's kind of putting a productized veneer over maybe the creation aspect. So maybe there's something out there that could be appropriated, purchased for integration. So someone who has created processes in the backgrounds that you can inject within your own process to leverage AI technologies or AI models for better outcomes or better focus, better data, better results. Just for knowing out there's companies out there like Celonis that we're aware of and have a relationship with. Celonis is a injects AI into process management. So kind of a platform through which you would log in your process flows and KPIs, and from the AI in the background of measuring ongoing and monitoring status can come up with recommendations on how to improve within those process flows. So some tools out there that are consumed. The AI model is not, you know, for manipulation necessarily or movement. It's there to help you along your journey and to optimize and things of that nature. So less flexibility, less control. And with that, we can advance slides and talk about foundations of AI, data.
Yeah. So when it comes to data preparation, what I'm going to suggest is, and I want you to keep note of these two words, reliable and representative. So reliable has to do with the quality of the data that you're going to use. You know, is it comprehensive? Is it complete? Is it consistent? All of these things sort of add up to determining whether or not your data is reliable or not. When I say representative, this is maybe a little bit more foreign. What I mean is that the data that you have is aligned with the process you're trying to improve. So let me give you an example. I'm sure everybody on this call has at one point or another called in for customer support. Could be any product, any kind of service. And if you're like me, you always get this scenario where you get tossed from one individual to another. And every time you get tossed to another individual, you have to re-explain what your scenario is. And that to me is an example of a system where the data is not representative. Because if it was representative, then it would allow that organization to see my experience as a customer, as an end user, from the end-to-end experience that I go through. And when you have to get handed off and re-explain your scenario, like it's a key indication that the data is not representative of the experience that I, as the customer, am going through. And so, really, what I mean by representative is that your data aligns with the thing you want to predict, the thing you want to improve, your process, the decisions. If you don't have data that's representative, good luck in trying to get some insights that are going to be fed into that process or that pipeline. So the second item that I'll mention is one of your biggest challenges, and that's going to be corporate culture. Using your data and finding those best use cases, it's a team sport. From how your data is sourced and collected, how it's cleaned, how it's connected, defined, displayed, reflected upon. It takes an entire village, and the more perspectives, the better. While much of the heavy lifting is technical, the real challenge is cultivating engagement. Everybody has their own day jobs, and now you're asking people to spend extra time to engage into the data so that it can be better understood and used by others. People don't have that extra kind of time. So, I think their opinion would be, sure, I'll get right on that, but this is why I think data preparation is so important. If you can align your data with the processes your organization already runs, then you'll have created an opportunity to surface that data and get people to spot oddities and inconsistencies and other issues that are preventing users from getting engaged. So I know that's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, but understanding that your end users and their engagement will be a critical factor in the success of anything you build that can leverage data and AI. Knowing that and working towards that means that you will contemplate them, in the overall process, and not ask them to do something that takes more of their valuable time to execute. Chris, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I had a point to interject on those two first bullets there. I mean, maybe a good example of data representation and data preparation, data readiness is just the whole concept of survey results and survey data. I mean, you can easily find yourself to have skewed or biased data that may not be representative of everyone you're trying to service or through a function or AI process as a whole. Survey data is really limited to those who are willing to answer a survey or willing to give their feedback. It's not necessarily what everyone from a customer service perspective, your customers are maybe saying, or your employees, your consumers of the technology or AI are doing. So it's important to understand that so some points could be skewed. Where are you gathering the data from? It could be from one single source that may not be holistic of an entire process. It could be a branch of a process that is data rich, but another equally weighted branch has less representative data. Then you are skewing some sort of result in there. So there's an understanding of where the information that you're going to leverage in your AI process comes from is obviously very important, and where the balance is, I guess, and all that, so that you're not skewed one way or the other and only servicing part of the people or processes that you believe are important through that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, bias touches on a whole category of ethics, and bias is one of those topics. We'll touch on a couple of others in a little bit. The third point on this slide here is about managing and using that data. Sort of picked up on there's an app for that, there's an AI for that. So what I would suggest here is that AI can assist in reviewing data quality, data integrity, defining metadata, even steps involved in mastering your data. If you've ever attempted to understand your data, then you'll know that the key activities involve digging into the details, understanding how it's connected to your systems and how end users interact with the data. Most systems in place already collect this information. Who uses it? How often is it used? In what context? If you have data and you have users interacting with your data, then you should have everything you need to allow AI to uncover the meaning of the data, its use in reporting and analysis, and ultimately its level of importance. My experience is that there are always way more questions that users have than there are hours in the day. Why not create an experience where users don't need to use a tool that they don't have time to train on anyway? What you need is to understand that you need a way for people to answer their own questions in a way that is embedded in their day-to-day activities using their day-to-day applications. So, looking for opportunities to embed natural language entry points into your systems that can then reach into your backend and serve up the answer to their question in real time. I think that is absolutely where all this is probably heading. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, just to tack on, maybe from a contact center perspective in this light, there has always been a lot of data that has been hard to access. And from that perspective, I'm talking about call transcripts or call recordings, email bodies, survey results in open field text, things of that nature, things that are unstructured text-based data have been recorded for as long as anyone can remember in the contact center industry. And how is that leveraged? Historically, before we have the ability to apply an AI to do intent analysis on it, it's been difficult. You'd have to take a subset sample size of the data, and hopefully it's representative of the larger picture and image for the time that you need to invest to analyze and look into this. But there are now tools on the market that have the ability to consume that corpus of data as a whole and just give you context, the ability to quantify that data. So imagine ingesting all your call recordings for a period of time, being able to apply contextual analysis using a language model to then be able to quantify what are people saying, what are people doing. So getting more rich data, the ability to look at the true completeness of the data is great. And we've worked in our practice, contact center practice here, with the partnership of a tool called Human First, has that absolute ability to help give you a quantitative analysis of what customers are saying in that regard. And it really is helpful in that AI journey. Where should I start? What should I automate? Where do I need to point the ship in the direction on that journey to gain benefits of automation through AI? Well, an ability to consume that amount of data and to quantify, give you a hierarchy, may set you on a roadmap of things that you can accomplish from an automation standpoint. So some valuable tools do exist out on the market to help focus that wide. We started off by saying AI is such a broad topic. It's hard to how do I wrangle it? How do I focus where I'm looking? Well, there are tools on the market that can help do that for managing and setting up your data to implement automation.
Yeah, automation, good toggle. All right, so a couple comments here. So focus enabling higher value work. One of the things that I think is a bit of a misnomer about large language models, and it's because of the name, is that everybody thinks they're about language. And the reality is that the AI has capabilities that go well beyond language, mathematical abilities, coding abilities, and the reality is that you have to recognize that the kinds of tools that you'll interact with to get at your data and do that kind of analysis, or do some coding. These are also languages. SQL and Python are very commonly used tools, for data extraction and manipulation, and they're like languages unto themselves. So recognizing that the capabilities of large language models go well beyond just a sort of a language interface, and they have strong capabilities to do analysis. So overall, that's going to free up a fair amount of time for you, and you're going to have a decision that kind of has to be made. Are you saving time, or are you making time? And I think that I use AI every day. I think a short day for me would be 2 hours, and a long day would be 10 hours. I'm definitely more productive because of it. And the question I have to kind of wrestle with is, how do I use that extra time? And I can use it sort of kick up my feet if I want, because I'm able to get the tasks done faster, or I can get more done. And I think that is something that everybody will have to kind of wrestle with as AI frees up time or makes time. So anyways, Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the concept of enabling higher value work, which is kind of, automation kind of, like you said, it's either going to give you more time or deliver you on consistency through an automated process that's always the same. I mean, automation historically is just limited by the complexity of rules that could be, manipulated through a machine or whatever automated process that you have. At that point, you inject the higher level of human reasoning when needed. So AI, large language models, just a new level achieved there. So delivering higher value work, if you can take out repetitive tasks and mundane work and inject automation there, it really does resonate with what would be your employees to have them see the benefit that they are contributing, to not have the need for them to do something that is repetitive and then becomes day-to-day boring. They are, supplying value in the process. They are making a higher level reasoning and trusted decision making in the entire process. Introducing AI that supports humans as well, or is a full automated process, just delivers a more consistent work base. So you don't have to worry about variance or human error injected in part of the process. So again, you get consistency and standardization that really helps in the end of brand and loyalty.
Yeah, and so the second point here on analytic augmentation, I think one of the most important things to recognize is that while the AI holds great promise for being able to perform certain tasks, many of those tasks of which people do today, that when you're embedding these kinds of systems into a process where a human is involved, it's important to recognize the importance of the human in the process. I've always said that the models need the people way more than the people need the models, and it's absolutely true. The models themselves will improve as they see more interaction from users. You may have heard of RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, and the whole idea there is that you need to ensure that there is a person in the process, regardless of where you're sort of embedding that AI in there, that can call BS on whatever the prediction is. The models can kind of learn from that, and they can be more supportive of the humans that are involved in making those decisions. But it is something that has to be there in the design. If you don't design in feedback mechanisms where people can actually say, no, I'm going to ignore this, then you miss something. You miss that opportunity to continue to evolve, because the reality is no matter what model you build, the predictions that it produces will grow stale over time. Your environment will change. The various factors that you thought were predictive will also change. And if you don't have a human in the midst of that process that can kind of say, hey, you know what, this isn't as good as it used to be, then you will have sort of little insight as to where it doesn't help. Now, there are methods of sort of quantifying the accuracy of models and whatnot, but I'm talking more about the ability to transform your model, to adapt your model to the environment. It comes in handy to be able to get feedback from an end user in that process. And then the last point there around explainability, this is again under the topic of ethics. And I know use cases will vary, but you need to understand what information a user needs in order to better interact with the AI, and also understand the rationale behind recommendations. It can be very important in some use cases. So, this may also dictate which models are acceptable. Some models are very adept at identifying the key factors that are driving predictions or driving recommendations. Others, it's kind of hidden. Now, the methods are also evolving as the AI evolves and our interaction with it evolves, and our demand for greater transparency and explainability evolves. The methods to be able to see the inner workings or the points that the AI relied upon for making a decision also become really important. So Yes, every single use case is not created equal, but I think that if you can contemplate the informational needs of users and even recognize that there are sort of sub-personas within a user base that may have differing needs when it comes to the information they require, being mindful of that, I think just sort of overall sets you up to be more successful in your use of AI. All right. So we're moving on here. Managing expectations. This is kind of that corporate culture piece we were talking about before. So from an internal perspective, I think a key message here would be that when working with internal stakeholders, the thing to remember is that one thing has not changed. AI or not, you still need to help your organization solve problems or solve your own problems. The technology is taking leaps and bounds forward, but I would suggest never starting a stakeholder conversation about AI with the technology. Do your homework, understand your stakeholders' problems, and look for opportunities to solve those problems. And don't fall into the trap of expecting your stakeholders to know what they want. This technology is so different from many other tech advances that it may be difficult for them to see how the technology can help them solve their problems. So, and also I would say at the moment that you start down the path of implementing AI is also the same moment when you should start discussions around change management. Depending on your use case, you could be asking your stakeholders to evolve how they work. In my opinion, that's way more challenging than building a neural network that predicts your next best action. So don't forget the amount of time required to help people adapt. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, just maybe that in there for internal expectations. We talk about how AI can assist in automation, but I think there's a reality of today to set the expectation that it's not always something you drop in and walk away from. The data will evolve. The conversation you're having will evolve. The way you operate or interact will evolve. So there needs to be attention paid to the process and make sure that those new inputs may change one way or the other where this automation or AI can travel. So it's very important to make sure that you're touching it, on a regular cadence and periodically as a tuning process. AI tuning is a common thing to make sure that you're on top of. So that expectation is important because upfront people may assume we've done this automation, we can walk away, leave it, it's going to work perfectly forever. So just to keep that in the back of mind for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when we toggle to some of the external considerations for an external stakeholder, I think that we sort of have a different set of topics that we need to consider, and a lot of them are sort of the ethical dilemmas. Certainly privacy is going to be a key one. I think you want to also ensure that anybody that is interacting with AI, that you're very clear that you have implemented AI. Don't try to pretend to be something that it's not. Call it out and recognize that I think people will largely appreciate knowing that they are interacting with AI when they are. And just one other comment on that, I would say that in terms of where the real effort is in adopting or utilizing AI and sort of thinking about the external impact that it can have, the amount of testing that has to go on to understand the impact that model can have, what that can look like to an end user. The testing needs to either be greatly expanded or become more sophisticated, because the range of outcomes that'll be generated by the AI will be much broader than most prior systems that will have been put in place. So it just to recognize the huge effort that testing will be, I think, going forward.
I think to extend on that testing concept is that with any AI solution, it's very important to avoid frustration with its use, because the trust involved in using an AI system kind of goes away very quickly if people are getting what they expect out of it. So I mean, it's very important to keep track of it. An ability to monitor and measure the failures will allow you to be able to react pretty quickly to correct anything, so that it's not long-standing and impacts that trust level of the AI. And I think that's a segue for us into monitoring, which is another good thing.
Yeah, and I would say when you're talking or thinking about monitoring and measurement, again, just like change management, I think you need to bake that into your conversations really early on. Understand that the best way to know whether or not AI is having the desired impact is to be able to measure its efficiency and measure its efficacy. So have those conversations early on about the form of measurement that you will adopt, and make it really apparent to people as to the impact that it is having. All right, Chris, do you have any other comments on evaluation, or we're good here?
Good to move on. Good to move on. Thanks.
All right, so just a couple comments on kind of where we're at, current state. We have some slides coming up that are a bit more about future state and where we think some of that is headed. But I think that when it comes to the use cases, this is probably today the most critical work. And having a well-defined process that allows you to identify use cases, but also to have a governance process within your organization that allows you to identify not just the use cases, but which ones you're going to tackle and how that ties back to your overall strategy as an organization. I think that's quite important. I would say that I've had a number of conversations with senior stakeholders where they will ask for a data strategy or ask for an AI strategy, and I think that that's probably the first step to failure. And the reason why I say that is that I've seen it happen where creating a new discipline within an organization and putting somebody in charge of that discipline and saying, hey, we're going to do this thing. Look, we put somebody important, in charge. It just creates another silo within the organization. And I think it's the last thing that you want to do. So I would think about it more in terms of looking at your established strategy and finding opportunities in every aspect of that strategy to embed greater use of data and the opportunity for AI. So we highlight use cases here, but that's more of like a signal towards like understanding the impact you're going to have, as opposed to like, hey, great, we've got this technology now. If you go that route of like just identifying the technology, hey, we want to bring this in, it will be viewed as a toy. And I think that also ties back with our prior comments about measurement. If it's not actually having an impact, then it's just kind of fun and games. And then the second thing here I may comment on around the current state is the skills that are needed. So I will make comment in terms of where I think it's headed, and we'll identify some shifts in skills that will be needed. But for now, many of the most relevant skills haven't changed all that much. Those with programming and math expertise are among the largest groups to gravitate towards a new AI because they have all the skills that align with how AI is being made available today. And I will say that will be changing. Chris.
Yeah, to this point, I think it's interesting. It's I'm going to gravitate to an LLM in this case. It seems to be a new abstraction layer. I mean, considering an evolution from what would be a binary computing programmer, it's ones and zeros, but through all those layers that are added on top of coding skill sets we talked about later had evolved over time about their complexity and ability. This is just another layer of interacting to extract what you need out of some performance by a more conversational ability. So yeah. It's quite powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the last point here is having the right mindset, and we don't have to dwell on this, but one of the biggest challenges will be navigating your corporate culture. And so, in addition to having the right, having the right mindset, you'll want to foster and hire people that are curious and inquisitive. One of the greatest skills that will be needed is the ability to ask questions. AI loves questions, so you want to hire people that ask really good ones. All right, let's move on here. Just a bit of a transition slide, and I wanted to talk about the skill sets, the people part of the equation, just a little bit more. So what you're seeing here is sort of a common graphic that's used to describe the skill sets required for data scientists. And so we've always talked about this sort of marriage of having math abilities, coding or hacking skills, and then domain knowledge. And this is generally led to these unicorns, being identified where they are at that intersection of all of those skill sets. And I think that one of the key things that's going to change, and we already see it in terms of interactions with AI and how it can kind of improve our performance, is that it's really good at math, it's really good at coding. Again, not math in terms of like being able to solve equations so much as being able to code so that it can solve those equations. So it's really coding is more what it does, but it creates this opportunity for a much broader audience of people to engage with sort of the mathematical skills that are needed and the coding skills that are needed. If you've tried coding like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or longer, I would highly recommend, and you kind of are interested in that, but just found it to be too much, give it another try. It's a very different construct these days with many, many layers of abstraction, making that kind of analysis very easy. And so this diagram, this picture on the left here is more, I think where we're at right now, although I think it's already starting to shift, just a bit of a sense of maybe what it could look like in the future. I think that, and this is still to suggest that all three are needed, but I think that in terms of where unicorns will come from, where they're going to come from, as opposed to traditionally it being more of the stats background, the mathematical background, and the comp sci background, I think because it's going to be easier to interact with those kinds of forms of work, that having your strong and deep domain knowledge is going to be such an essential characteristic for data science. And so I think that and I think we all have these kinds of people in our organization. They're in the day-to-day, core enterprise processes. It could be customer facing, or it's not IT though, right? They're doing work that is very, I think traditionally would say like the business side of things. And but they've always had an affinity for doing some analysis, working with the numbers. Those I think are the future unicorns. And so as opposed to the unicorns traditionally coming from math and comp sci, I think they're going to come more from the domain side. And I think that's very fascinating, because I think that with the advent of analytic processes and massive volumes of data, it has largely been those that have those skills related to data management and analysis and coding that have kind of risen to the top in terms of the data science work. I think in the future it's going to be more about the domain expertise that you bring to the table, coupled with little sprinklings of coding and mathematical ability. So that's just sort of setting the stage here for some other comments on potential future state or elements of the future state. And I think, one of them is around the data side of things. And I think if you believe anything that I've been sharing about the importance of data here, then you'll also see how the roles associated with data management, and specifically those that are focused on data quality, are going to grow in importance. The AI is data dependent. So you'll find that you'll also depend on those roles that give you that data so that the AI can operate well. So, there's a lot of existing roles that are, creations in the last 5 years, I'd say. And I think there's going to be more of that as we sort of go forward. Second point, I would say, is that the importance of learning and development. The technology is so new that it's not possible to hire sort of fresh grads out of university who have these kinds of skills. And so I think upskilling is such a big thing. And so that's why I say learning and development. And these are typically practices inside of organizations where they're looking to the talent that's inside the organization already to sort of figure out, what kinds of additional skills do people need. And I think that's going to be probably more important than it's ever been. Because the technology that's now available makes it a lot more. It makes a lot of other skills a lot more accessible than it has been before. In fact, I would say one of the greatest strengths of AI is the ability to learn from it. And what I mean by that is for it to act as a teacher. I do this all the time. There might be some topic or some technology that I'm not familiar with, and I'll just go to the AI and say, "Hey, put together a lesson plan for me. I want you to walk me through. I'm going to call this session something like I was learning the other day. I was learning GitHub, so it was like I need to know enough to be dangerous, sort of thing, right? So that's what I titled my little personalized course. And I said, and I want you to quiz me as we go through. Give me the table of contents for this lesson plan. And there it ran off and did that. And I said, great, now let's start. And so there was my learning experience. And it's very much customized to what I don't know. If you thought about how people learn in general, an old traditional way of doing this would be, hey, here's a textbook, 400 pages, go at it. And as you read through that, I think you probably realize that there's a very large portion of that where you already know the content, and now you're looking for those bits to, append to your existing knowledge base. That's what the AI allows you to do: is focus on the things you don't know and append them to what you already know. So I think that's a big part of the future state, and then technological advancement is just going to speed up. It's Moore's law. Everything is speeding up and doubles every so many years. And I think that with AI coupled with mobile devices, I mean, remember, it wasn't that long ago that mobile devices came to be, and just look at how our world has changed. You put AI on the edge in those mobile devices, I think it's going to be very dramatic how it changes things as well. So anyways, with that, Chris, pass it back to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to dive a bit more targeted and very practical and back into my world of contact centers. So things that are future facing that are really, I guess, kind of inspirational for what's tech is on the horizon is for forever, we've been trying in the contact center industry to meet the customer where they want to be met, which is the creation of all these channels through which we can communicate. So not just voice, we can do email and chat and the like. Well, meeting people where they want to be met also could be speaking to them in the way they want to be spoken to or interacted with. LLMs are great at some of those things. Persona injection is quite strong. So an ability to customize a web page for the specific client, for what their needs are or what their tendencies are, what will draw them to interact with you more. The ability to speak with them on the tone that they want to be spoken to, going through age demographic brackets, it really will enhance what the customer experience is from a customer-facing perspective. A different aspect that really is strong, obviously I'm leaning on LLMs again, but the summarization aspect of an LLM is also quite great, and the ability to process that. We spoke of survey bias previously. It's always been a problem, but it's been the most common way to get feedback from clientele or customers. But what if we could analyze everything that is being said, and that becomes your NPS score? So NPS scores is obviously strong and something that goes beyond, but it's not just in relating for a direct customer relationship. What if you are a service provider or providing a project for a client? If all your meetings have been recorded and then you process the satisfaction of the back and forth within a meeting, could obviously be something that is NPS related. So it's a new way to survey and get feedback that may be broader and more true. So some exciting horizons in my corner of the world anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the comments on those like a little more crystal clear use cases. I often think about, like I said, the theory behind a lot of this and the technology itself, but finding ways to use the technology is oftentimes some of the more fascinating conversations. With that, I think we're gonna wrap up and we can go to Q&A. But I did have just sort of a parting thought. And that is, if you could leave with one message, it would be, be adaptable. When technology changes this dramatically, it will alter our very existence. Our language will change, our jobs will change, how we hire will change, and what we find important will change. Your ability to adapt personally, as well as how you help your organization to adapt, will directly impact your personal and professional journey. If there's one word that best encapsulates whether you'll successfully be able to leverage AI and whether you'll be able to navigate through this metamorphic change, it would be adaptability. So with that, I think we can open it for any kind of Q&A. Jamie, are you looking after that?
Yes. The camera. Hi there. Yes, I see we have one question in from Richie. He says, do you mean more about OCM rather than TCM, technical change management, when it comes to the
Yes.
AI adoption?
Yeah, it's more about your overall organization and the way that it needs to change. Yeah, it's not about the technical change management with version control and that sort of thing. So hopefully that answered the question.
Looks like that was a satisfactory one.
Good.
I think that was it for Q&A. If there's anything else, I'm sure we can field that offline. Thanks so much today, guys. That was really, really interesting.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Should we wrap up a little bit early?
We absolutely can. Next steps, Jamie. I believe there's a follow-up that will happen from online that could be an invite to participate in Mark's workshop. Is that true?
That's right. That's right. Yes. Registrants and participants from today's webinar will receive the communication from Stephen Cameron, who's going to reach out to you just regarding the workshop specifically. And then also I'll be sending out an email with the recording, some information about a session that we have coming up in November, as well as a blog courtesy of Chris. So there's lots of goodies coming your way.
All right. Fantastic. Well, I'll say thank you to everyone for listening to us ramble on for a bit, but it was all good stuff. It was all great information. Mark, fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, welcome to join into our next webinar in this series, and look forward to hopefully talking with you all down the road.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for attending, everybody. Have a good one.